Welcome back to another week of Devlog. This is number 58. And so, getting right into it, this week I was working on the character controller a bit more, and my goal was to finish off the final bit of functionality that was broken from the original refactor from version 3. So on Monday, I was mainly working on. I got all the aim and the base mechanics done for aiming and firing last week. So this week I was focusing on validating and making sure the cover features were working as they were before, and trying to, if I saw anything that was out of order, to polish it off, make sure it's up to production quality. So it's looking pretty good. A lot of things were broken since I moved around the components, but I was able to do a lot of testing and pretty much validate that everything is now working how it should. So you can move in between cover, and all the colliders are right, and everything's looking good. Did a lot of testing, and then I moved on to the IK definitions for each of the weapons. So um, equipping, aiming around corners, like the movement, the IK for each of the weapons to make sure everything looked good. Most of them were intact still. I just had to go and validate and make sure that everything's looking how it should, both for standing and for crouching. So that's all good. I think it was Monday and Tuesday. On Wednesday, I made sure all the transitions are good. And doing the demo, I noticed there's still a few issues, but it's a very, very minor, like, edge cases. But for the most part, everything's working how it should. So Wednesday, I was able to make sure that moving in between cover and then rounding corners is working how it should, just like it used to. Fixing a bunch of really small issues, and then I also was able to update the cover markers, so to the new version of the model instead of the old one, for crouching for crouching and standing. So that was a bit tricky because the newest mesh, it didn't like to include the coat, but I found an older mesh that actually included the coat. So something's up with the newest mesh. Like, Unity doesn't like to. Has trouble creating a solid mesh copy, but I was able to get that done eventually with an older mesh, so it looks pretty good for my uses. So once all that was looking good and done, I moved to the stealth controller functionality. So I had to kind of go, and this is the second time that I've had to do this, where I've had to figure out how to set it up properly with all the baked skin mesh renderers and the transitions between the three models. And I kind of left notes for myself this time because I'd done it once before, but I didn't bother to write down how I did it. So I had to refigure out the process again, and then in case I have to do it again, I wrote down the steps to do it. But now stealth is working how it should, and it works with the different guns as well. So the guns are stealth too. So all that's looking pretty decent. It took some doing, and the last thing for the very last bit of functionality for the original character controller was that was broken, was the the shield controller, right? So, like I did with the stealth controller, I had to rebuild like I did before, but now this is working. So, um, and it works with stealth as well, how it usually did. So, what I will do, so yeah, everything's broken. So at this point, I had completed the functionality, restored all the functionality from the previous one since I started this character version 3 refactor, and it's pretty much all the functionality that is now fixed and validated and operational. So I committed that back to main, and I started in on the end of the week. I was trying to figure out. I had just a handful more um, features that I wanted to try to implement for the character controller. Just a couple things like you're seeing here, um, the character blood. When you take a hit, it will, just like the shield, it'll get the hit point and it'll spawn some sort of blood splash at a position. And if you're moving, it'll wait for like 0.5 seconds before it does a ray cast down directly on the ground and does like a little decal marker for like a blood splash. So that's when you're hit. But then I went a step further and implemented different like functionality. Like when you're low on health, like below 70%, like you institute like a bleed effect, where now over time it'll actually set a decal marker where you are, not just where you got hit. So it's like you leave like a blood trail over time. So it kind of spawns a blood splatter over time. And these are like random. So this was like a package I had that I implemented. I finally figured out how to use it. And so at 70%, I slow the character down a little. It's not as fast as it used to be, and it kind of leaves a blood trail. And I also went one step further. This was challenging at the end of the day or end of the week. Was adding an injured walking animation, and an injured idle animation, right? That was a bit tricky. Adding this on top of the state machine of the animation controller, but okay. So this is the next state where it's like you're below 30% health, and now you're really dropping a lot of. Now you're really leaving a blood trail, and you're really slowed down now. So, yeah. But getting this to work with aiming, it was really kind of glitching out with the aiming. I decided for now to like disable while you're injured, to disable jumping or crouching. It was almost not worth it actually doing this. I really wanted. I was like on the fence, like maybe, but it turned out like you really have to get it right and define like all the cases for like this new injured state, and because there's a lot of adding this new state on top of everything. While it looks cool, the blood definitely, but adding the injured animations and the injured functionality, while it looks cool, there's a lot of it doesn't really mesh seamlessly with the system. Like it just takes a lot of work, and it's kind of like I'm debating. I got it to a place like where like I can agree now, like yeah, this is good enough to keep in, but when I was first starting it, I was really on the fence. Is like, is this actually doable in a reasonable sense of times, like for the actual value it delivers, or is it can I just? I think like I think with a little bit more work, it can actually be production standard. Um, um, but I think it's worth it to have this sort of, instead of just slowing down, to actually have like an injured animation walk. So it's limited, but it's while the rest of the functionality that I did is actually production grade level, this new feature, it's still kind of at a prototype level. And I'll probably bring it up to production eventually, but As for this and next week, there's a couple features where there's like 3 features where I'm implementing new prototype level. One of them is another one I was working on was the actual functionality of this sort of if you can see it, there's this like laser. Um, here's a good thing right here, and I kind of stopped work to work on the actual injured animation, but you can see it it's like a laser on the gun, and it's very subtle, but what you do is it points in a direction, and when it goes and hits a enemy, it'll actually, you won't see the middle of the laser, so it won't be like this big laser, going around everywhere. See, this is kind of a bug right now I have to iron out. It actually extends backwards, but you won't see this big laser extending out. It'll kind of be, you'll see the start of it, and then you'll see if it hits an enemy, you'll see the actual end of it, like right next to the enemy. So that's more work for the features coming up. And I think the last one that I have to prototype now is like a footstep audio system for the character, and that should do it for the features. The last of the features I have planned for the character controller. Like once I get those done to a certain degree, I can actually move on to other things. So I've been working on the character controller version 3 for a while now, and this is the week where I finally got it all fixed up to where it was with new stuff in version 3, and then now in this last week and next week, adding a few final features to the character controller, and I think I'll be ready to move on to the next thing. But that is pretty much all I have to discuss for today. Pretty straightforward, and we will continue on and talk to you next week. Thanks for joining. We'll see you later.